Hey everyone, welcome to a new video. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys the gradual evolution. There's about 16 phases for the evolution of a traditional AI stock photography image uploading individual, right? Kind of like a metamorphoses, if you will. This happens pretty much all the time. I've been doing stock photography for myself, and I've been kind of seeing the traits and the things that I've been learning. And I've been noticing certain behaviors about myself, certain thought processes. And frankly, to be honest, I noticed it in other people who are watching my content as well. You know, certain kind of questions tend to repeat and they become relatively predictable. So if you're in the phases where you're not up to the point where you're scaling the production line of those different images that you're uploading to different stock photography sites, and you're still through those kind of trenches of still trying to figure out what's right, what's wrong, different efforts, things like that, this video is going to help you out the most. In fact, I'm going to start referring people to this video whenever they ask me a question, because the reality is that their question is probably going to be answered and sufficed within this video. So if you really think about it, yes, I'm going over the evolution, the metamorphoses once again of each individual uploader, how things kind of happen over time, but more importantly, I'll be also answering the kind of dilemmas and situations that each individual can go through by providing solutions, hopefully. So this is not just from my perspective, even though it is heavily influenced from my perspective, but it's from your guys' perspective as well through the questions that are being asked. So I have this little graphic here that says the evolution of an AI stock photography uploader, and this is kind of how it starts. The individual is kind of like, you know, twiddling their thumbs, if you will, kind of curious, maybe trying some things here and there, but really not upload anything in mass scale or mass quantity. They get to a point where they have this excitement, so they kind of evolved over time. They have this excitement, they have this energy, they have this motivation, and that kind of carries them into finally generating a significant amount of profits. Unfortunately, guys, people die along the way. And when I say die, I don't mean biologically, but I mean more in a meta kind of way. I was going to say physiologically, but obviously not. In a meta kind of way. People die, their motivations die, their inspiration dies, their belief in themselves tend to die, and they go figure out something else to do, right? So I'm going to hopefully, once again, try to answer every single dilemma or have an answer to every dilemma to try to get you guys past these issues that you're going through. So we'll go over this evolution, and let's start off at the very first phase. The very first phase is when you introduce this business idea to an individual, the first question they get is, where do I get the images from stage, right? And some people don't really ask somebody. Maybe they just go, download some free images from Pexels and try to upload them and realize that they get banned a week down the road. Some people try to create images from stock photography sites. Some people try to go shoot pictures, right? There's no indication that somebody tries to go one way, but these are different examples or different things that people experience. So the first question when they're introduced with the business idea is, where do I get the images? Some people might have some different softwares that they could think of, like free softwares that they might use, and they might think of that. When they finally get their images, they start to create some images, whether it be incorrect images, like I said, from other free sites, or be images that they created through AI or whatever the case. Then they start to think, well, how do I tag? They get to this stage, which is stage number 2. They start thinking about, like, what keyword should I put? Does it matter? Well, how do I do this? They might search for instructions. They might search for a YouTube video. They're not really sure what to do, but they try to piece it all together. Then they move into the next phase. This should be number 3, so don't worry too much about the little mistakes here. But number 3 is they ask themselves, why are my images being approved fast enough? So this is a common stage that I see people who are pretty much boisterous about on my YouTube channel. I always get comments like this of, why is my account taking so slow to get images approved? The reality is if you're a beginner and you're uploading images, they will take longer. The more images you upload, the more approvals you get, the more downloads you get, the less you'll experience that kind of issue. This is just, like I said, another phase in the game. This is normal, right? Newer people have this problem. They tend to have this problem. To be honest, when I created my accounts years ago, I didn't really have this problem. Maybe Adobe introduced this relatively new because of the influx through AI and things like that, but, it's just a problem that you're going to have to face. You're going to have to stay consistent and keep uploading. The next problem that people go through, the next phase, I guess you can say, is they go into this titles phase where they're concerned so much about how do I title the image. They tell themselves, I already know how to create images. I'm using some free software. They tell themselves I'm tagging, I'm doing the tags, but I'm really struggling with my titles. Then what do I do, right? This is after they get over that hump, and this is a hump of, why aren't my images being approved fast enough, right? So let's go to that next stage, the fifth stage, the it's feeling impossible stage. So this is where things start to weigh in on the individual. This is where things kind of feel slow and boring. The individual is probably sitting there trying to upload as best as they can, and they're waiting for images to be approved, which it's not coming fast enough for them. They're probably titling and tagging incorrectly, but they don't know it. They're just trying their best. They're definitely not getting sales, and their images tend to be low quality, right? And that's the reality, because this is where the beginners start at, and then they kind of move into that next phase where they're trying their first automation tool. See, when they get to this impossible stage, this feeling of negativity, they're gonna look for something to kind of alleviate that feeling, to take that feeling away. And so the automation tool could be something as simply as trying their very first image generation software that is a little better than other ones. Sometimes it's trying a certain app that they found online that could help them use certain keywords on certain tools. It could be something as simple as the tool that we created in our course. If you're familiar, we have this tool right here where it searches, or you search for certain keywords, and it comes up with the analytics behind that keyword, how many results and how it compares, and it gives you nice charts, and you can actually export your data. And it gives you stuff like that. So that could be an example. That's just a simple example of how somebody might find their first automation tool, or a tool that can help them in this business. And to be honest, this creates a little bit of excitement. It does create a little bit of an excitement. And then they move on to the next phase. So once again, sorry about the numbering, but don't worry about it. It says, why I'm not making enough money stage. So here, once again, notice where they kind of moved on from. They're trying their first automation tool. They're working on it at this point. They've already kind of conquered some of their mental barriers that they've experienced previously, and they're asking themselves, why am I not making enough money? I'm using a tool, I'm titling, I'm creating images, I've kind of went through these different tags. Then what they try to come up with is they believe that there's a new issue in their business, a new problem that they need to solve, which is niche finding. They say, okay, niches are the problem. I need to solve these niches problem. What are the best niches? And then they go on this journey to discover the best niche to sell on Adobe Stock, which to be realistic, guys, this is a pseudo problem. This is not a real problem that actually exists. Finding the right niche to sell on stock photography sites is not a real problem to have. And this is something that beginners struggle with a lot. They always constantly ask themselves, what niche, as if that's going to make the difference between them making $50 versus $5,000. It's not. The reality is that, and this is kind of really, really, really overblown, is that niche only matters when you get past the point of maybe uploading about 15,000 images. Because at this point, now you have enough data to look at your work and say, okay, this generates more money than this. Let's go ahead and create more images in this category. Before that, guys, niche really shouldn't matter. Niche shouldn't even be a question. Because once again, people are thinking from the print-on-demand mindset. They're thinking this niche is so important. And this is why I say don't mix different business models in your mind together. Different business models are not behave the same. They don't behave the same. You shouldn't behave the same in those business models. And this is actually a logical fallacy called neomania. Neomania is this need, this internal desire to solve new problems in hopes to find the solutions to the actual existing problem, which is not being addressed. You see what I'm saying? So you're creating new problems for yourself in this business, but you're not solving the original ones that are the cause of all your issues. And finding a new niche is not the problem here, okay? And then what happens is, after they kind of try different niches, whatever, they kind of start looking at their images and they ask themselves, are my images decent quality? Okay, so technically it's not 16, it's probably 17 because I miscounted, but the next stage, they ask themselves, are my images quality? They'll be looking at their images, they'll start looking at different competitor images, and they'll start saying, well, why don't my images look like those type of images? And they'll get to the phase now where they're realizing, well, my images are not as good as they actually should be. And this is kind of the first stage in this whole entire process where they start to realize that they're doing something wrong. And I can't tell you how important this stage is because I get comments all the time of people saying, I don't know why my images aren't selling. My images aren't selling. All my quality of images are great. I'm doing well. There's no reason for this not to happen. Well, the reality is that it happens. Everything happens for a reason. I can't sit here and tell you how many times I get comments like this of people saying, why am I not getting enough sales? Why am I not getting any sales? I uploaded X amount of images, or why am I only getting X amount of images? I uploaded Y amount of sales, and Y is 10 times, 20 times, 100 times greater than the amount of sales I'm getting. And the reality is that they have to come to this truth moment, this moment of truth where they completely understand that the work that they've done in the past is essentially worthless, right? And guys, this is the phase of somebody who's trying to figure out everything alone, which is perfectly fine. That's why I created my course to help people along the way, to solve problems for them. Like I said, we've uploaded over 120 plus videos in this course to help people along the way and kind of guide them so that they don't have to go through these phases. But once again, the people who don't have access to the course, they're trying to figure it out themselves, they probably have either went through this phase or they're going to go through it. And so, like I said, they're realizing that their images are probably not as good quality as they think, right? And because remember, guys, this is a normal kind of ideology. If I'm a consumer scrolling through, let's say, Adobe Stock, there's many different stock photography sites. Let's just use Adobe Stock for a second. If I'm scrolling through Adobe Stock and I don't see images that are attractive to me, am I going to download them? The answer is no. And if I don't download them, the uploader, not the customer, the uploader, right, the seller, they're not going to get any money. And that makes you the seller, right? You're not going to get any money if your images aren't good quality, if they're not attractive, if they don't, command desire in the consumer. So that's kind of where the issues lie. And then, like I said, stage 9, stage 10, whatever you want to call it, that's the very first time that individual is coming to the realization that they might be doing something wrong. Let's move on to the next stage. They're using premium image generation tools. Now, after they've realized, hey, my images are really not that good, I have to find a solution, they probably move over to the paid tools that cost a little bit more, that produce a little bit better results. People who have the course know what tools I use. They're pretty basic, but there's other ones out there. Everybody kind of has their own preference, but I kind of found tools that worked for me and my students that kind of made things simple. And this is where they actually start to create better images. And this is the first stage where they not only have found the problem, but they found the solution to their problem. You have to realize in all the other stages, they have not found a single solution to their problem. They're just simply trying new things, okay? And it's important when you realize that you have been trying the wrong things over and over and over. It's like using a map to the treasure chest, but moving in the opposite direction. So now you have to cover all the ground that you've kind of went the wrong way in. So you have the original map, and then you have all the ground that you didn't cover. It's double the work. You're doing essentially double the work, making up for lost time. After they start to use premium tools, things that are a little bit more higher quality, they start to realize, right? And they start to get curious that, hey, I could be making things a lot easier on myself. And they start to dive into automation. So instead of them sitting down and creating every single image individually, they're going to start looking at some sorts of automation. And there's many sources. You guys know what sources I use for image automation. You guys have seen the tools. You guys have seen the tutorials. You guys have seen the videos. There was a video where, like I said, I created over 4,000 images in a single session with an automation tool. Not the whole video of it, but it was essentially, that's kind of what it was titled, showing how I created the automation, showing how to break it down, showing how the images were created through the automation, that whole entire process. I even released a video pretty recently talking about my best practices, the things that you want to best pay attention to when using image automation to get the best results out of it. But they start to get curious, and then finally, they take a deep dive into automation. They pull the trigger. They decide, okay, let me try this thing out. And they try their first software, they try their first tool that starts to do some of the work for them. This is where automation comes into play. Not only now are they saving money, they're saving time, and they're excited. Now they go into the next stage, the 13th stage. You can call it the 14th, depending on how you're counting these steps. But now they're full-blown image automators. They almost do no manual work. They're automating pretty much everything. And now they have a new problem on their hands. They have too many images. Too many images that they're going to have to upload. And might I add, too many good quality images. And that's not a bad problem to have. It's a problem, but it's not a bad problem. It's kind of like telling yourself, I have a really high tax bill. Well, having a high tax bill is not necessarily a bad problem to have. It means that you've made a lot of money, right? It's the same kind of problem. So having a lot of these images to process, because now they are full-blown image automators. And so they jump into the next phase, and I actually should copy and paste a little arrow here to make this a little bit more attractive. But they jump into their next phase, this should be 15 here, which is they're starting to get into automating of titles and tags, okay? And they could start one or the other, doesn't matter really the order. They're moving into the next phase. So if the first phase was automating their tags, they're satisfied with the process, they've came down with a good working process, they move into the next phase, which is automating the titles, right? So they go from one stage to another, one step to another. And then what they do is now they have a scaling mindset. And that scaling mindset could be as simple as sitting down and trying to learn how to kind of bridge the gap between all their automation tools and working together on those tools to provide a cohesive unit of results. Sometimes it might be looking for an extra payment or an extra tool that they want to use to do all the work for them, or something that can automate more. They'll start looking at different holes or chinks in the armor, if you would say, which are cracks in the armor, looking for things that go wrong in the business that they're trying to solve. But essentially, at this point, they have overcome all their problems. They have automated pretty much all their tasks, and now they're only focused on the growing. So if you look at all these steps, you're probably at one point or another somewhere along this phase, right? And I'll tell you this, you could be on day 1 or day 2 as fast as reaching stage 17. You do not have to be stuck at stage 4, stage 5, etc., a month, 2 months, 5 months down the road. It just depends on how much information you have available to you. If you're the type of person that's going to sit there and just kind of figure it out all out yourself, you will kind of go through these phases, and that's normal, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Just because I'm providing a course that can help you get there faster, that doesn't mean that you have to use it. You can figure it out all yourself. And I don't even want to try to encourage people to use the course. The reality is that I have advertised the course as purely a library of information for people who just want to see what I'm doing. It's not necessarily something I want to be pushy on or try to get people into as hard as they want, because the rules are laid out. You're either going to figure it out yourself or you're going to have somebody figure it out for you, which there's nothing wrong with either one, okay? So I don't want to sit here and act like it. But something I do want you to realize is that throughout all these phases, it's not like people always reach the end, right? There are people who start, maybe they stop at, the 3rd, 4th, 5th stage, and then they just quit. They just move on to something else, right? They find new problems in other businesses, maybe they try other things, and to only that, I would say, what a shame, because if you think about it, this business, and I've said this before, and I still wholeheartedly believe it, currently, where this business stands today, it is currently the easiest business on the internet. And I'm not saying that as an exaggeration. I used to say print on demand used to be the easiest, but this is easier than print on demand because you don't have to do any image editing here. You don't have to do any background removal, putting on t-shirts, doing the marketing. First of all, let's get this clear. You don't have to do any marketing. You don't have to do any manual work. The automation phase is an option. You don't have to do any manual work. Think of that. You don't have to title, you don't have to tag, you don't have to create images. Now, obviously, if you're deciding not to use the automation tools and you're deciding to do it all manually, it's still the easiest business. There is no business that compares in terms of ease. And I'm curious to anybody who thinks there's an easier business out there, please let me know. I would love to experience an easier business than this. I'll hop all over it. I'll find ways to automate it. I'll find people who have automation tools. I'll hire them. I'll use them, whatever the case may be, and I'll hop and dominate onto those businesses as well. But currently, to date, I don't see a business that's easier than artificial intelligent image uploading or stock photography, essentially, because it's the creation of the image, the uploading the image, the submission of the image. Every single phase of that can be done through automation. Zero manual effort. All you have to do is install systems. So what do I mean by that? If you're going to use image automation, right? How does that look like? You have your AI, you set your AI to a certain format to create your prompts for you. You upload your prompts, boom, they're created. And each prompt spits out 4 images. And those set of images, guess what they do? You use that image, you put them through a machine to upscale them, right? Bulk upscale for free. You get that done. And then you take all the images, you upload them. That's manual, but doesn't take any work. Then you have the automation that tags titles. Then you take all of them, submit them. Done. Right? So it really can't get easier than this. Like I said, I can't think of a harder business. Print on demand is a little bit harder because I have to, pay attention to what platform I'm on. I have to tag a certain way. I have to title a certain way. Shopify is harder. I have to create a website design. I have to create website copy. I have to make sure I study the customer. I have to know what they're looking for. I have to create ads. There's a lot of things I have to do, right? So these are the phases. Hopefully this video helps out. And more importantly, hopefully it's effective to solve your problems. And like I said, anybody who probably asks me a question from now on, like relating to these phases, like, oh, what, tools do you recommend? Or why is my images not good quality? Or why am I not getting enough downloads? The reality is you're probably going through something in this phase, right? Where you're creating issues for yourself and they could be easily solved by, moving on to the next phase, solving the problems, etc. All right. I'll talk to you guys later. Hopefully this video helps. See you soon. Peace out. Bye.